Five, four, three, two, one. Thunderbirds are go.
Well, hey everybody, it's Doug here. Doug, Mr. Guy on Board Game Geek, bringing you another playthrough. Though this one's going to be a bit shorter than the last one, and the narrative that I did in the last one won't exist in this one, at least not in the same format, I don't think. But I did want to bring you a new game that I just got via Kickstarter called the Thunderbirds. It's based on an old television show from 50 years ago where they used puppets, and you were watching the exploits of the Tracy family, the very wealthy Tracy family, in the future as they were attempting to thwart the Hood and all of the terrible disasters that could happen on our planet, where they were basically trying to save the world. And in this game, this is a game by Matt Leacock, who is best known for his cooperative games that he's designed, such as Pandemic and Forbidden Island, and I believe the other Forbidden stuff too, Forbidden Desert, all that good stuff. And this is definitely one of his games that has that feel and flavor to it, and you'll get that pretty quickly if you've played Pandemic or any of the other Matt Leacock games. Anyway, guys, let's get going. I'm going to do a brief review of the setup and the rules, and then we're going to at least try and sneak in a turn in this episode. So let's move on. So here's the board, guys, and I've already done the setup, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that as we go, and just talk about. Now, I also am playing the solitaire variant, which allows you to swap out characters, and you'll understand that more as we get into it. But basically, I'm just going to go over the setup really very quickly. We're going to start way up at the top. Up here at the very top, we have the Hood's track. Now, as you can see, I've already set it up. I've seeded it with event cards. There are numerous event cards in the game. There are also numerous difficulty level schemes, 1 through 5. Now, in the introductory piece, and I'll show you that on a card right now, which I will also put up on screen, I believe. We're going to be playing the intro difficulty level, which means that we're going to have 2 events, a level 1 scheme by the Hood, another event, a level 2 scheme by the Hood, another event, and a level 3 scheme by the Hood. We have to take, and you can see that the Hood moves along this track. If, just at a high level, if any time, one of the lose conditions is if at any time the Hood reaches a spot where the skull and crossbones are at one of his schemes and we haven't completed that scheme, we lose the game. And these events are going to come up when he hits the spots that show the portion on the cards where on the board where they would flip that over. Now we're going to get to see that first scheme, but I'm not going to show it to you quite yet, as I just want to go over more of the setup at this point. Then we'll flip over the scheme right before we start to play. So next up, after we set up the Hood track, which is up there, and again there are more schemes, so you're going to shuffle the 1s, 2s, and 3s. And in this case, because we're only playing that difficulty, if it was a higher difficulty, it'd be maybe for the 4s or even the 5. And we're going to pick one, so we don't know what it is or what we have to do. And there's an anatomy to those that you'll see that's fairly common, where you have to get certain tokens and people there. In fact, the majority of this game is getting the Tracys and their special vehicles and tools to the appropriate place to solve a crisis, either an event, a scheme, or a disaster. And you'll see what those are like. And one of the cool things about the game is you have these vehicles. And this one is, and one of the problems I'm having with this game already is I don't remember which one's which. This is Thunderbird 2, actually, which I should remember, because they are up here on the board showing their movement, but they don't show, they should have put the numbers on them. And there are stickers where I could put the numbers on these two as well. Anyway, you can see the ship is there, and now this has the green player on it, which I believe in Thunderbird 2 is Virgil Tracy, and you can see that this little miniature, this little peg miniature can come out and can go on to other ships. But right now at the start of the game, he is in the South Pacific on Tracy Island in the in Thunderbird 2. Now Thunderbird 2 has a cool thing where it can actually transport other vehicles. By removing this pod, you can transport either vehicles or special devices that are created by our scientists called Brain. And we have Brain's notebook, which I'll explain a little later as well. But that's the thing. Now, people can move around vehicles. 2 of them can get in the same vehicle. You notice there's multiple slots. Like here with Thunderbird, let me see, which one is Thunderbird 2 or 4, I think it is. yeah, this is going to be the fun part. Thunderbird 1 right here, boom. That's Thunderbird 1. You can see it only has one other slot for somebody in there. And that is, on Thunderbird 1, is Scott Tracy. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a character as well. But let's follow this setup path. I'm kind of giving you, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So the next thing that we would set up would be the disaster track. This down here is the disaster track, and it goes over to the point where you see on the far right the skull and crossbones. Every turn, a new one's, or after every player's turn, a new one's going to come out, and these are going to march down. If we haven't solved them by the time we get to the skull and crossbones at the very end, and one card enters that space, we haven't solved it, we are going to lose the game. But one of the main things we do in here is solve these disasters that will come out. So, for example, some of them require a roll of a target number, and some of them require you to just do something special. We happen to have a good example of that here. So, we have this one. This is the uninvited, and it basically says, help the explorers escape from the pyramid of Kamandides in the Sahara Desert. Okay, what do we have to do to accomplish this? Well, we have to be in Africa, we have to be on land, and we have to roll an 8 or better. And now you think, what are you rolling on? Well, you're rolling on 2 6-sided dice, and those dice only have the numbers 1 through 5 on them, with the the 6th space being the hood, which advances him. One of the ways he advances on his track. So you're going, well, man, you get an 8, and you only get up to roll of 10. Well, yes, but there's ways to mitigate this. So you can see here that if you have Scott and Gordon Tracy on the job with you, then you're going to get +2 and +2. So that's 4. That would knock it down to a 6 right there. In addition, now there are cardboard tokens for these, like this, for example, that would take place this, but I'm using the ones I got with the Kickstarter. You can also get these tokens. I don't remember exactly. I have to look up and see what they're called. They're called teamwork tokens, which give you a +2 on a roll that you can expend. And how you get those tokens is one of the ways is by completing these. So if I manage to complete this successfully and discard it, I'm going to get, in this case, a token of my choice. Okay, and then this would be discarded, and there'd be a gap here. You don't automatically fill the gap. Things move down because there's ways to push them back. And then this one is one of the other ones I told you about. There's no number to roll. It's in South America, but you have to have solved the salt bed splashdown. You have to spend an action to avert the disaster anytime Fab 1, Thunderbird 1, and Thunderbird 2 are all in South America. So you have to get all these vehicles there. No particular person, but the vehicles. And it says race to Bolivia to prepare a crash site for the damaged Telsat 5 space satellite. Okay, and then in doing that we would get this token, which is an intelligence token. And that can be spent on various things like solving schemes and events, or to be used as the intelligence tokens can be used to re-roll. Okay, those can be used as re-rolls, and that's pretty powerful. Okay, so that's now we have this set up. Now, how did I set this up? Well, I took out all the base disasters, and I shuffled them and dealt out 3. Then I created 4 stacks of 9 each, and seeded them with a special card in each of those 9 stacks that advances the hood. There's 2 cards in each stack of 9, added to each stack of 9 that advances the hood. Otherwise, there are more disasters like this. So in the setup, you're going to deal 3. You're going to divide the disaster deck up into 4 piles of 9 cards, and then add to each pile the hood advances, and shuffle those up and create one big giant pile. I hope that made sense. Okay, then we're going to set up the machines and pod vehicles. That's all these. Okay, so these are things that can be created. And right now you have their schematic up, not their actual unit up. When you flip it over, you can see that it's now completed and you can use it. 2 of these can go on Thunderbird 2, right? 2, yeah. And they can be transported to various locations that might be required. For example, with this disaster, it requires the laser cutter as well as Thunderbird 1. So the laser cutter is here. So if we were to develop the laser cutter, we would have that in our base. You can see that if you look here, it's a little hard to see, but we already have one of the devices. That is the mole. It's basically a drilling machine that is already created and on Tracy Island ready for use. Now, how do you create those? Well, we're going to take actions. I'll explain actions a little bit. We're still finishing setup. Okay, so I did set up the tokens. They're ready to go as well. And I did pick our characters. So let's go over because next thing I would do is pick our characters. Now, we're doing the solo variant, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what's different about that. So I randomly drew out of the characters the 3 that we're going to start with. In a solo game, you always start with 3, and you treat them like they're individuals. Okay. The difference is that in a normal game, you can't really swap these guys out in the way that would seem logical. But in the solo game, we can actually swap out, spend a turn swapping out with all the other characters that fly the other vehicles, and we can do that at need. But it does take a special action to do that. And when we do that special action, those 2 characters really don't get to do anything for that turn. They're swapping out. So for now, we have John Tracy, who is up in he starts up in the space station in, I can't remember which vehicle it is, the one up in space at the geo-orbital station. We have Penelope, who's a spy for Fab, and she's in Fab 1 in Europe, which looks like a little car with her little pink self. And you can see that looks just like her. Pretty cool. And then we have Gordon Tracy, who is the guy who does basically the undersea missions, and he is in this one here. So they are all in the South Pacific. So those are the 3 characters that we're starting out with, and so that would be the next piece. And then we set up the board, and there's a couple things that happen there, where the vehicles go. You can see that the main vehicles are all right here. 3 of the 5 vehicles are here in the South Pacific on Tracy Island, where they will start. But there's a couple of them. Now, they're in the setup. There's a special reason that this one ends up out in space already, and that's because he's already in the space station. So I think it's Virgil. I can't remember which one flies that one. But John Tracy, if John Tracy starts in the game, then this one starts up in here instead of here. And he is at a space station that can allow us to do some special actions. And also, this rocket can travel back and forth. It's the only way to get back and forth between the planets. Now, this track here is the only track that the orange vehicle the orange spaceship can travel on, and it can do missions on all those planets. So, we don't have that character yet. He's not in our current lineup of 3, but we will be able to use him later. So, we set up the vehicles according to that, and then basically we had one more piece of setup. And that's the Fab cards. These cards are special cards that allow you to break the rules, basically. And you can acquire them in a number of ways. You can acquire them by spending I think it's a logistics, one of these ones. One of these tokens can get one of these without. Now, you can also take an action, which I'll explain the actions in a bit, to get one of these. But when you take the action, it moves the hood on its track, so it's kind of risky. However, if you have these tokens, you can spend them to get one of those for free. And again, they allow you to basically break the rules in some way, shape, or form. Okay, now, that is set up. So let's get on and talk about our turns. So this is the game turn. And again, like Matt Leacock games, like if you're familiar with Pandemic, you're going to see some minor similarities. There are some differences too. So in the game turn, we're going to take 3 actions and do any number of operations. Operations are free actions, and I'll tell you what they are in a moment. There's a bunch of those as well. But these are the main actions that you can take. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is take our 3 actions. We're going to move. That allows us to move up to our vehicle's speed. And if you look on the board way up at the top, there is a machine and speed chart there that shows you how fast the vehicles can move. We can rescue, which means we're going to tackle one of these disasters and see if we can solve it. We can plan, which is, as I told you in the earlier part, we can draw 1 Fab card, but then we advance the hood 1 space. And we can scan. This is what John Tracy does for us. He moves a disaster card back 1 slot. So for example, if the disasters are spread out like you can see at the bottom there, if they're like this, I can push this one back to the 2. Not all of them, just the one that I choose can go backwards. Okay, and those are the main actions. Okay, and this just shows you what the different things are. But let's go over the operations, because those are also something you can do. And I'm going to flip to the page that shows that. Okay. You can, as an operation, you can transfer character, but now remember, ours is going to be different because we're playing the solo variant. You can still transfer characters, but we also have the ability to actually swap characters out who we're playing. We can load and unload the Thunderbird 4 as a free action, Fab 1 or any. So we can load into Thunderbird 2, the Thunderbird 4, the Fab 1, or any pod vehicles. We can have up to 2 pod vehicles in there at any one time. We can defeat a scheme. That if we have the ability to do that, we can just do it. We can also use the bonus tokens at any time for free. Those are the free actions we get to do, and then the main actions, which I read to you later. And then, of course, after that, we're going to draw our disaster card, and then we're going to move pass the dice and the first player token to the next player. Yeah, it really is that simple overall. The hard part of the game is getting the logistics in place to be able to get to the disasters you need to with the right people and the right plan. That's the hard part. So we got one more thing to do before we start playing, and that's look at our first scheme. We get to turn that one up immediately. So let's take a look at that and see what we have to accomplish, what the Tracys have to accomplish before basically the hood reaches the first scheme space. By the way, Penelope is an agent. She is not one of the Tracy family. Anyway, we're going to draw this scheme here, and we're going to take a look at it and see what it says to us. Skywire. So this is a level 1 scheme. It says, oh, okay, this takes place at the geostationary orbit, so we have to do that. There we have to spend a intelligence token. Wow, this is pretty tough, actually. We need basically 4 different tokens. A determination token. Now, if we spend those as what they are, they allow us to take extra actions. A logistics token and a teamwork token. And that will allow us to defeat this scheme. And it says, defeat the Hood's plot to use a rogue satellite to spy on international rescue operations. And that allows us to get a fab card as a result of succeeding. But again, if we fail, if that gets there before we succeed at that, we lose. And that's a bad thing. Okay, that's okay. I'm looking. I haven't missed anything. I could, another thing we do is we have these tokens. I think I'm going to use them just to make it easier for you. That shows where our current disasters are. So we got one in South Africa, or South America, one in Africa, and one in North America. So those are where our current disasters are that we need to get to. And I think one of the ones that's going to be easiest for us to tackle is probably... I don't know, actually. We'll have to see. We need to get Gordon Tracy and Scott Tracy to Africa, and that's we have neither of them in place right now. So we also need to get Thunderbird 1 or the laser cutter to South America. Or sorry, North America to complete this disaster, and then South America for this one, which just requires that we have the vehicles there. Now that we might be able to do because I'm only missing one character. I could swap out John and get those 3 vehicles there, because we already have Penelope in play, and we also have one of the other ones who drives Fab 1 already, and then we also have Thunderbird 2 in play. Well, no, we don't actually. We have Thunderbird. Yeah, well, this could be hard. Anyway, we're going to get started. So, by the way, I'm talking about these. Let's get going and see how this goes. Again, this is my first playthrough. I did a test run just so I knew I had the rules down. But let's get going. And first up will be John Tracy. So first up is John Tracy. Now, he gets to add +2 to space rescues. He's unfortunately in space and not very useful to us to do many things. But he also has the ability to ignore the effects of one of the results of the hood rolls on the dice, which is very helpful. But again, he is in Thunderbird 5, which is way up in space. He is our first player, however. So the thing, I think, remember, we get 3 actions before we draw a card. And the only way I can swap people out in the solo variant, let me read the solo variant to you as we get started, just so you understand it. It'll make more sense as we play, but basically you'll get it. So, see, it says solitaire play here. Set up the game as usual for a 3-player game, but put the 3 drawn character cards face up in front of you. Place the player turn marker on the first character card, blah, blah, blah. So we do that, then create a reserve deck of unused character cards. We've done that. Then it says play. Play the game as normal. Normal 3-player game controlling each of the characters as usual in turn and using additional rules below. Make sure you keep the bonus tokens and fab cards separate. So in other words, they still have to stay with their characters. Special game turn swapping characters. Spend a complete game turn to swap the currently active character card with a character card from the reserve deck. Both of the relevant character pegs must be on the South Pacific to do this action. Put the newly introduced character card into play and put the other character cards into the reserve deck. Any bonus tokens and fab cards that are swapped the characters had are returned to the supply. So that's not good either. All character cards in the reserve deck are available to be swapped. No disaster cards drawing during this phase. So if we make that swap out, we don't have to draw a disaster card. And so the reason I'm telling you that is because we really don't need John yet. John's best ability is scanning and pushing back the disasters, finding where the disasters are happening. But for us to swap him out, we got to get him here. So for his first action, which is this is one of the things I did hear about the game, is sometimes you don't get to do enough. There's no like, hey, I'm just going to do this. He could scan, but there's no reason for him to do that. It's not going to push any of the cards back right now. He has no tokens, so he can't spend any tokens, and he's up there in orbit. So what we're going to do for the first part of his turn is he is going to transfer. Now remember, that is a free action, right? Moving in between ships. He is moving in between. He is moving to I think it's Thunderbird 4, into the spaceship so they can come back down. They don't need to be in space for anything. And then for his second action, he's going to move. I'm going to have, by the time the game ends, I'll probably have it memorized which ship is which. That's Thunderbird 3 actually is the big ship. So let me think about this. I think I'm going to just have him move right down. Okay, for his second action, John is going to take the rocket. Now, the rocket can move up to 3, so it's only going to move 2 down here to the South Pacific. Now, what vehicles do we need? We currently need to get Scott, who's in Thunderbird 1, or whatever ship that is, the blue one, and Gordon, who's in the submarine one, to I think this uninvited scheme is one of the easiest ones we can get to in Africa. Well, maybe not. Maybe just getting the other ships there is going to be worthwhile. Huh. Okay, well, so that was his second action. Now remember, we can transfer operations. We can transfer for free as many times as we like. So he is then going to transfer. So John is again leaving the ship, and he is going to go into this ship here. And why is he doing that? Because we can fly this around. We don't have to be the player. That was not he still has one more action left, and I think what he's going to do is plan. So he's going to draw a fab card, but what that means is that the hood is going to advance one right there. But we're going to get to draw our first fab card. This is Astronaut Spacewalk. Okay, this is a card we just get to keep. This is going to go in John's hands, which makes sense since John is the space guy. Add +3 to any space rescue play before someone rolls for a rescue. Okay, so that is going to go with John, Tracy there. Now remember, the sad thing is if we swap him out and as a character while he has that card, that card's going to go back to the supply, and that kind of stinks. But anyway, that was his actual 3 turns. So even though at first I thought, well, he didn't have a lot to do, he did plenty. He got down and he got into the other ship, and that's the start of us completing two different ones that we need. And if we can just pop right over to the one in South America, we are most of the way there. But next we have Lady Penelope, and she is in Fab 1. Now, let's go up to her. Okay, she starts the game in Europe. Now let's take a look at her special ability. I'm going to put her up on screen for you. It says, her special action abilities, once per turn you may exchange 1 bonus token with the supply for free. That means she can exchange them out. She also has the ability of once per turn may spend an action to draw a intelligence token if she is in Europe. So that is actually going to be her first action. So, and remember, an intelligence token gives us a reroll, but we also need one to complete the Skywire scheme of the hood. So that's going to give us one of these tokens. You can see it's got the intelligence symbol on it, and that will go with Lady Penelope. That was her first action. So for her second action, now again, she's up here in Europe. So we want her to get to South America. So first off, now, and then just because she's in a car, it also has, I guess it also is a hovercraft. It's got like a hydrofoil in it. So she is going to move from the North Atlantic. You can see that the board wraps around. She can go from Europe to the North Atlantic here, and that's what she's going to do. Okay, so as you can see, we're starting to set up to make our move here, right? And we're going to then, so that was basically, that was her second action. Her first action was to get the token. Her second action was to move there. And then for her third action, she can plop down, drive down into South America. Okay, I think you got it. So she's there. She's waiting for the boys, so they can fix this one, the splashdown one in South America, where the Telsat space satellite has crashed. They're going to help fix it and get it on its way, and that will solve a disaster. You know what I'm forgetting to do, guys? I already made some major mistakes. One major mistake. Let's go back to the disaster deck. I needed to draw the disaster for John Tracy. Well, I'm glad we're only one turn in, but we're going to bump these up. We're going to draw a new disaster. It says the imposters. Ooh, this one looks okay. It says, oh, it's in the geostationary orbit, so we got to go back up in space for this one. It's a space mission, and it says help Elliot from the Space Observatory 3 and catch the crooks pretending to be international rescue. And we need Scott and Fab 1 in North. We need Scott on the mission, so he needs to be here, and then Fab 1 in North America we get that bonus. So we're going to have to get her up to North America. That's not far. This one will probably be the next one that we take on. But now that we've ended Penelope's turn, we got all three of her actions. We're going to have to do that disaster thing again, so you can see how quickly these can pile up on you. It could be very dangerous for us. Okay, we're going to move these down again. Already looking kind of tough. This is might be harder than we think. And it says the perils of Penelope. We need to be in Europe. We need target number 7 on land. Lady Penelope is a +2 and the Fab is a +1. So we just need to get her back to Europe. She can take that one on by herself, and it's going to give her a determination token, which would give her another action, but we really need it to solve the Skywire scheme of the hood. Okay, now we're going to move on to Gordon Tracy. Okay, so we're setting up for a couple of things here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to move Gordon, boom, into Thunderbird 2, I think this is, right here, with Virgil. And Virgil is not one of our main played characters right now, so we're going to stick this peg in there, so now you see they're both in there. They're right here. And then we're going to remove that so that we can put the Thunderbird blah blah blah, whichever one the yellow one is. I promise you I'm going to try and remember these. Thunderbird, wow, that was almost bad. Thunderbird 4 in that one. That is Thunderbird 4 into the bay here. Now neither of those were in action yet, right? He just transferred. So for his first action, now Gordon Tracy, we haven't looked at his special abilities yet. He gets to add +3 to sea rescues when he rolls, and once per turn he may spend an action to draw a determination token if we're in Thunderbird 4. So you know what? Before we moved out of Thunderbird 4, his first action would have been to draw, and I'm still learning, so you're going to have to forgive me, we're going to get this right, would be to draw one of these tokens. So he did that one, but then exited Thunderbird 4 to Thunderbird 2. Okay, then we're going to take Thunderbird 2, and that was his first action. So for his second actual action, he's going to move here to South America. Now, we are almost ready to complete the splashdown. We only need the one more vehicle left, and we're going to have to do that next turn. But we haven't had to do anything, haven't had to roll any dice. We're in pretty good shape so far. And once we get all those guys there, we're going to be able to take this out and make it happen. Okay, well that is the end of Gordon Tracy's turn, and we're going to need to do one more disaster before we get to take one of them out of play. As you can see, the game starts pretty rough, right? So we're already got 6 disasters. We're 2 disasters away from winning. Ouchie, ouchie, boom, but there we go. Okay, and then we're going to draw another one. They call him Mr. X. We need the mobile crane, the Thunderizer, and the Domo in those 3 devices in Asia. Wonderful, huh? Okay, so that was his third action, or second action. We still got one more to go. I'm debating if I advance the hood one more time, we're going to get our first event. But those cards might be very, very useful to us. So I think for his third action, while he's there, he is going to plan. So what does that mean? The first sucky thing that happens is the hood advances one more, and we're going to learn what our first event is, and it says USN Sentinel Missile Strike. Thunderbird 2 has a top speed of 1 until a character in its space discards that is the technology token. So his speed has been reduced, and that's going to remain in play until I fix that. And once we fix that, it can go away. So that's not good, but we're already in a place where we need to be. And I did load the other Well, the submarine only has a movement of 1 anyway, so we're going to have to solve that, that's for sure. And we can do that by getting some of these missions completed, some of these disasters. So, anyway, I actually already drew his card, didn't I? So let me see, what did I do? I loaded him here and I put the sub in. I got a token and I moved that. So that was only 2. That was only 2 actions. So he did have that 3rd action left, and that's what we did. Okay, now we're going to wrap back around.